so long is like alchemy.
All right, here we go, y'all. H-Town, stand up or not. Shout out to everybody that joined me for my live pregame. I know those are early, but we had some fun. I'm going to figure out a way to do some different times of those lives so more people can join us. James Ennis is the Trevor Ariza replacement, and he has similar attributes, but not nearly the experience or the basketball IQ for this Houston Rockets team that came off a big win against Denver in Denver and officially cut ties with Melo before the game. That was funny how that went, right? Oh, he's sick. He's not feeling well. We're talking to him. No, he's done. First offensive possession was a play ran for Durant all the way down to the end of the shot clock, but he knocked it down. And honestly, the first 4 or 5 minutes of this game, I was thinking to myself, oh, we're going to blow them out. We look super crisp and alert. Damian Jones continued to get switched out on the guards, and he did a serviceable job. I'm not going to hate on the young dude. Draymond transition, and look who he finds. Kevin Durant on the break for the dunk. And, you know, they were very stoic. There wasn't a lot of smiles, but it looked serious, and you thought, okay, they're dialed in. Here's Clay with Capella switched out on him, and he gets to the cup pretty easy right there with the reverse English. I had highlighted pregame that I thought we needed a big game from Clay, and I thought we were going to get one considering Harden hadn't been in good shape, but I didn't think it out too well because I realized without Steph, they could switch multiple defenders on Clay. Rockets made up for a slow start with the 3-ball, and that was kind of the story. Watch how quick Draymond clears out here for KD. I thought this was funny, right? KD's actually calling something different, but Draymond's like, oh, you want the ball? He's like, here. And Draymond's like, let me get out, KD. It's your ball, baby. There was some little nuances of that throughout the game, but this is just an absolutely ugly offensive possession. Look at the triangle formed around Kevin Durant, and then there's just not enough shooters. We get the offensive rebound, and if you want to place blame on particular players in this game for this offensive performance, you can place it on Iguodala and Sean Livingston's lack of aggression. They're already not spacing the floor, and now they're not looking to attack the basket, and it allowed Houston to defend our two shooters with basically their entire defense all game long. They run Tucker off the three-point line. I apologize for the breakup. I think I need a new HDMI. There's only a few plays with that. But you see Tucker get the roll here. So we've talked about the lack of spacing, but Durant was to blame too. Watch him not take this 3-ball, and that's becoming a real story about him not wanting to shoot threes, and I think he's chasing the 50-40-90 because the shot clock's winding down there. That's great. You're making the extra pass, but it's a shot clock violation. While Durant's gravity is as strong as ever, its radius is shrinking because his refusal to pump the 3-ball. Damian, here was a nice example of him kind of recovering and staying in front of Harden, who started off slow like he normally does, but it wouldn't last. Here's a nice drive baseline. Look at the spacing and look where Damian Jones is. And it got me to thinking about when Boogie returns, how much he's going to help the spacing because he's a legit 3-point threat and they can do a lot of 4 and 5 out stuff like we're seeing with the Bucks and Brook Lopez. Here's a defensive stand in the paint with multiple efforts. And I didn't think the effort was bad. I just don't think they were present. They weren't fully present in the moment, and it showed, right? They looked a bit distracted, but they were aware of the moment, so they didn't completely dog it, right? They just weren't executing. And what we saw was perhaps some fake effort, right? Something that looked like effort. There's Jerebko filling the lane. I thought he was a bright spot along with Looney in this one. So if I had one knock on Durant's game this season, it's shot selection. We've talked about him not wanting to shoot the 3, and then he takes this with a 7-footer in his face. And I had mentioned, I think he is hunting the 50-40-90, but his shot selection, it's just kind of weird, right? And then here they go down. Eric Gordon starts to bang down a 3, just the known warrior killer, right? And then Harden gets going, and it just gets tough to watch. These clear out switches, it's like watching 12-year-olds play 2K. It's just not very fun. I mean, look at their arena. Not many people in there. Now watch Sean not show the screen until the last second here. That's the key to this play for Jerebko. He's cutting, and then he flashes at the last second, and they love running this out of timeouts for Jerebko. He knocks it down. But look at this double screen action. KD doesn't want to switch, but then there's another screen, and it's a slip, and it leaves enough confusion and time for Gordon to pump another 3-ball. D'Antoni's offense, it's slick. We just don't see enough of it with Harden and Paul. Now, McKinney came in the game, and we may have to dial his minutes back. I'm not saying don't play him. I'm just saying pick your spots better with him, Kerr, because he's struggling. Looney, watch him catch, feel the spin, and then go right down the pike with 2 hands. I know he's so limited and he can be frustrating, but there's something to be said about Kevon just coming out and playing basketball and giving us the same consistent effort every night. Jerebko switched on Paul. It's a lot to ask of Jerebko, but I thought he did a serviceable job in several switches. You got to keep your hands up, though. And Clay, I've talked about Clay growing his game, but 33% from the three-point line this season. That's including that Chicago game, so that is rough. Now I'm going to hold it here. This is just unacceptable spacing, and this is Steve Kerr has to figure this out. They're all within like 10 feet of each other, and so you're going to see what's going to happen here. It's going to result in a turnover. And Kerr's going to have to get creative and spread some things out here. I don't know. This is really an underlining issue beyond all this drama is Kerr's offense and not really altering anything. You look at what Milwaukee's doing and how everybody's adjusting in Toronto. It's clear Steph Curry has covered up the lack of Steve Kerr's offensive dexterity as you see Andre icing the ankle. And so whenever Steph out, it becomes apparent like Kerr isn't really running any kind of modern offense. A quick fix that I think that you could try is have Kevon and Damian Jones shoot a couple of threes. I'm not talking about 4 or 5 a game, but have them spread out to the three-point line. We know they've been working on their shot. There was Sean's one aggressive play of the game, but I just didn't like the way he played. But Looney and Damian, have them play up top and spread the floor a little bit. And we've seen other teams try this with some success. As you see Jerebko finish the play again, but take a look at this block from Clay. I was talking over this, but that's a courageous block against a 7-footer going to the rim. We've seen Clay do that several times. He just has no fear when playing defense. And then I'm going to hold it here. Look at the wall around Clay. 4 defenders around Clay, and then the lack of shooters. Watch this. Sean needs to finish that. That touch pass out to Draymond, KYP, Sean. Draymond's not shooting threes. Clay penetrates again. Draymond doesn't want to shoot it. Quinn gets run off the line, and he finally gets a floater, but the degree of difficulty to get those 2 points, not 3, was ridiculous. And there's a quick little slip screen from Houston, who is scoring much easier and getting much easier looks. Again, let's take a look at the spacing here. It's just unacceptable. There's no way to run an efficient offense that way. And again, I go back to Kerr. I understand he's dealing with certain personnel, but then you're going to end up with results like this. Draymond taking mid-range jumpers. It just makes me throw up in the back of my mouth. Here's an example of sort of fake effort from Clay. Watch the help defense here. It's like they're there, but they don't really want to help, right? Just scoops right in for the hoop. And more examples of Sean. And being a veteran leader on this team, you got to shoot these shots. You know we're having a hard time generating offense, and he's not even shooting his shots. I don't think I've had a grumpy video this year, so I was due. So don't, I'm not going to get too negative. I know this is one game here, but you got to call it how you see it. And it was ugly, right? There's reason to be grumpy about this one. As far as the execution and the actual gameplay. Now, the silver lining, I think, besides Kevon Looney, was the overall interaction between the team. You see KD knock it down, Quinn Cook penetrates, and Jacob Evans, you knew they were struggling when Jacob Evans was in the game in the second quarter. I was like, oh my goodness, right? But then this happened. He knocks down a corner 3, and the thing that caught my eye was the arc on the shot. I had been complaining about his release and his arc, and the 2 jumpers he took, he had a completely different arc on his shot, so that was promising. Dribble, fake, handoff, Iguodala, the dunk. But again, it was Iguodala and Sean were the biggest culprits. They knew the scenario. They needed to get up shots. I wouldn't kill them for missing them. They weren't even taking them. Looney blocks Capella deep in the paint. That was impressive. Clay just had himself a dog of a game. 5 of 16 for 10 points. 0 of 5 from 3. I don't completely blame him given the spacing. I mean, he was basically triple teamed on every possession. Harden started to get going, ended up with 27, and towards the end of this first half is where it started to get away from us, and you started to feel this could get ugly as he started heat checking from 28 feet. And now initially in this final possession, I'm like, KD, why are you taking such a shitty shot? But if you think about the spacing and the non-shooting on the floor, I think he's discouraged to penetrate and kick, right? If it's not Clay, then the shot's not going to go up, and that's what you get. So the third quarter starts, and Harden looked to put us away. You know how it goes. When you're down to start the second half, it's those first 4 minutes determine if you're going to stay in the game, and we didn't win those first 4 minutes. Damian's soft in the paint, and then they score here so quickly the camera barely catches it, and that's when I was like, okay, we're in trouble. If they're going to score on an out-of-bounds play and we're going to get beat down the court, and watch the body language after the basket, that's when everybody's pointing at each other, and you're like, uh-oh, this is going to get away from us, right? Look at the body language. Now, I talked about my biggest gripe with KD. My biggest gripe with Draymond, since I'm doing this, is how has he gotten so bad at shooting? I'm not expecting him to be a knockdown shooter, but the fact that he's regressing as he ages makes me question if I want him long term, and I'm dead serious about it. Now watch this switching here. There's no reason to switch this and have Damian and Harden. There's no reason to switch that. That's too weak. I'm very curious to see how the Bucks play the Rockets and how they don't switch and handle the Rockets' attack. Now, KD can have an absolutely terrible night and still wake up and get 20 points, and that's what he did. He didn't have a terrible night. He just wasn't particularly good along with anybody else. Draymond, 5 turnovers. I don't even think he scored in this game. And, you know, if you want to take the positive side of things, hopefully this was a humbling experience for Draymond Green, because I think his ego got away from him. I don't want to, you know, I mean, we all know what's happened, right? But take a look at him here, and you know he wanted this one. Obviously, this interaction here was good. They're talking, they're communicating, they seem fine within the game, so that's positive. But look at Draymond here. He wants this one, and he knows, and he looks to be a little humbled if I'm reading his mannerisms and body language, and that's probably a good thing moving forward. Second game in a row where Damian had some really bad calls. He gets no love from the referees, and then he got like kind of fired up and blocked a shot. So I again mentioned like maybe Damian needs to somehow create some sort of irritation to find some fire in his game. Looney had a couple of crazy finishes, a bunch of offensive rebounds, and I point out Bob Myers was in press row. He wanted to be courtside. He wanted to hear what was going on the court on this one. I talked about them not being present. Here's another sign of that. When KD misses a shot like that, you know his mind isn't in the game. And then when it rains, it pours. Harden, banks open. As the blowout became official midway through the third quarter, here was something I thought that was interesting as when it comes to spacing. I'll hold it here. KD was catching further out. And what that does is you're going to see Klay cut to the rim. And usually he catches it closer to the elbow, right? Closer to the paint. And that doesn't have enough space for a cutter. He's further out by the line, and that gives more spacing for cuts and him to make passes. They got several buckets off KD catching further out. The rule of thumb would be if you've got three-point shooters on the floor, you have them catch as deep as possible. With non-shooters, you want him to catch further out to open up the paint. Looney again on the glass. Andre, I mean, he could do this so much more often. He shot 4 shots in like 24 minutes of play, and the 2 that he made were both layups. And I guess I don't need to keep beating a dead horse. You know how I feel about these 2 vets. Now, one thing I want to say about Jerebko is not only has he played well, but I like his personality and his spirit, especially for this team and with what's going on. Take a listen to him.
They go in. Fuck, come on, I gotta make that shit.
Never quits on a play.
When you play hard and you're easy to like, that's just a good combination for a role player and a teammate. There's Houston's rookie from Cincinnati, Gary Clark, knocking down a 3 of his own. Difference being it didn't cost Houston a draft pick. And I'm telling you, I've mentioned this before, I feel like Morey is going to try to poach Looney from us. He plays so well against them. I just have this vision of Looney getting poached by the Rockets. Another turnover, Klay just out of sync. The whole team was out of sync. So there was a little bit of a fake effort. They didn't roll over. You know, they tried to fight, but Houston being as good as they are, and then the Warriors being distracted, it led to this blowout. Chris Paul, the strip, and you just knew they weren't going to take their foot off the pedal, especially against us, as their other rookie bangs the 3 in the corner, the German 7-footer. And, you know, we got Dallas. And then San Antonio back-to-backs. So it's going to be interesting, y'all. And, you know, I think that overall, again, big picture, and you can go and find it. It's all over the internet of these 4 joking on the bench. And they were strategically placed. Steph next to KD and Boogie next to Draymond, without a doubt. And they seem to be in good spirits despite the loss. Draymond, I brought up him being humbled. And it's just something we're going to have to monitor. Hopefully this isn't going to be the story the entire season, you know what I'm saying? After they rattle off some wins, we can move on and we can focus on Boogie's return and you know, developing the bench. But for the next, you know, 10 to 14 days, all eyes will be on these 2 in this story. And Houston, you know, has looked more like themselves. Shout out Chris Paul. You know I don't ever want to say that, but if you listen to his post-game interview, he wasn't too up about it, and he gave a lot of credit to Steph. And basically, first thing he mentioned was, well, you know, when they don't have Steph Curry, this doesn't really matter. I'm out, y'all.
I've been winning so long, it's like alchemy.